what's interesting about this Williams injury is, and yes, it is a significant injury, and he could be out for 11 to 12 months. We've seen running backs with injuries of this magnitude. They come back. He's still young. I believe he'll come back at a full recovery. They have a very good doctors with these organizations. They'll send him to the best surgeon in the world where they'll make sure that they can reconstruct that knee and get that knee back in order. So I'm not really worried about that. What's crazy about that is when you see these injuries like the Breece Hall out for the season, all these star young running backs that are just bursting, and what you're so excited to watch. You saw Breece Hall in the first 5 weeks. You're talking about a guy that everybody thought was going to be top 5 running. We had somebody on this show telling us that by the end of the season, this guy is a fantasy guru. He told us that Breece Hall was going to be a top 5 running back in all of the NFL by the end of this season. And then you lose him for a season because he has a meniscus, a little partial tear in his meniscus, and he torn his ACL. Now, again, the Jets have said that they believe he'll be back at the beginning of next season. They're all ready, and they're happy. They're happy that he's going to become ready and a full recovery. Whatever. You look at the Broncos right now. I mean, what is it about this team besides, I would say, Patrick Surtain that has really stood out this year? Honestly, the best player this year, I like Cortland Sutton. He looks like he's a good wide receiver. He's worked very well with Russell Wilson. But the real guy that really stood out to me so far this year is Patrick Surtain. He is a shutdown corner. I would say a top 5 corner in the NFL right now. He's really the only bright spot that I can say that I have seen on this team. And it's really, he is the defense. And I'm going to tell you, everybody's going to say, what are you talking about? He's one player. If he can shut down the best player against any other team, any wide receiver, that opens up everything for the front 7. It opens up everything. He has done that. He has given up no touchdowns this year. None. At his position. And that tells you how good and how fantastic of a player that he is. What are your thoughts with Patrick Surtain? Am I right or wrong on this?
Oh, you're absolutely correct. There's some issues that I have with him in terms of his consistent physicality in the running game. And I know that sounds like a nitpicky thing, but at the same time, there are some issues with him, like driving on the football a little bit in the running game, miss some tackles, and kind of do the business decision, if you will, where he just doesn't get physical. But in terms of his change of direction ability that I didn't think was quite as good as it actually is phenomenal. He's allowed 23 receptions, I believe it is, for like less than 200 total yards. He's phenomenal. And that's a cornerstone building piece of this franchise. I believe that he right now is a top 3 cornerback in the NFL, just based on pure athletic ability, based on pure coverage ability, based on statistics. The guy is absolutely phenomenal, but there's a lot more to take away from what this defense is doing. Over a 3-week stretch there a couple of weeks ago, the Broncos were actually generating pass pressure at one of the highest rates in the NFL. In fact, they had 90 total pass pressures over 3 weeks. And that's doing it without Randy Gregory. That's doing it without with a Bradley Chubb who's playing against double teams, with a Dre'Mont Jones that's winning some one-on-one battles. But you're not doing it with straight 1-4. They're simulating a lot of pressures. They're bringing a lot of the linebacker blitzes. They're sugaring the A gaps. They're bringing some stuff like that. But then they'll show it and they won't bring it. And then guys are just winning their one-on-one matchups up front. Got to give a lot of love to DJ Jones, who's shown a lot of ability as a pass rusher. Excuse me, I'm sorry. DJ Jones is just doing an amazing job. Deshaun Williams is doing a great job. You're getting Nick Bonito, who had a really good game against the Jacksonville Jaguars this last week, had a great spin move and came up, got a strip sack on Trevor Lawrence. They're doing a great job of generating pass pressure. They're also doing a great job of forcing fumbles. I think they're second or third in the league in terms of forcing fumbles this season. They're getting the ball on the ground, but this is a game of inches, and the ball's not just bouncing their way. So there's a lot of bright spots to this defense. And they're doing it without a lot of their key players that they thought that they were going to get. Justin Simmons missed some time there with a hamstring injury. Caden Stearns is out with a hip injury. He's going to miss the rest of this season. Kareem Jackson has taken a big step back in terms of his ability, but he's still playing at a high level. Ronald Darby, the other starting quarterback opposite of Patrick Surtain, has missed a lot of this season. They're starting Damari Mathis, rookie cornerback out of Pittsburgh, and he's playing at a very good level. So the defense is not playing poor football, and there's a lot more to take away than just the ability of Patrick Surtain. And yes, while you're absolutely correct, he's the linchpin of this defense, but there are a lot of key role players that are stepping up and playing incredible football right now. The defense is only allowing 16 points a game. You should be winning a lot more games than just 3 with that production.
You would think as Russell Wilson as your quarterback. I mean,
exactly. Yes.
I really believe Russell Wilson is not 100% healthy. That's what I believe. I know that it's not an excuse, and ever since he hurt his thumb last year, if everybody remembers, he hurt his thumb. He had that arthroscopic surgery. He was out for 6 weeks. The Seattle Seahawks rushed him back, and he played well, but he didn't play well. I don't think he's 100% healthy, and I believe that Seattle Seahawks knew that he wasn't 100% healthy. And they say, you know what? We're going to fleece the Broncos. We're going to get as much as we possibly can from them. We'll get their mother, their sister, and their brothers, and we'll make the trade. And look, they're flying right now. Their team is not even. They still have this year's first-round draft pick for Russell Wilson. I mean, the Broncos are a bit. Could you imagine the Broncos might have a top 10 pick this year, and it's going to Seattle? So it is crazy right now. It really is, and they're only going to get better, Seattle. And behind Geno Smith, what is the chances for something like this to happen? I know, because it has to do with this team. Okay. This team right here, anything that this team touches, it either turns to crap or it helps some other team out. It doesn't help my
Jamal
team.
Adams.
Jamal Adams is a waste of space. I've said that a million times. But and look, their defense is playing well without him, so they obviously know they don't need him.
Lance, I want to rub it in more as a Giants fan. I watched them to play the Seahawks this week. Shelby Harris looked very good in that game, too.
Yeah.
If Shelby Harris and Dre'Mont Jones are still paired together, you're talking about a top probably 5 interior defensive lineman duo based on the way that Shelby Harris is playing. I cannot express my love for what Dre'Mont Jones is doing this season. He has been absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, he's got 31 total pressures, 6 total sacks, only 2 quarterback hits though, which is crazy. You get that much pressure, you're not actually landing hits on the quarterback. But the pass rush productivity, he's a top, I think, 6 in terms of run stuffing grade in the NFL per PFF. Like, this dude is really playing at a high level of football. And if you have Shelby Harris, you have another player other than, and not to take anything away from DJ Jones, obviously, but if you have another player along the interior that can create enough consistent pass rush, Dre'Mont Jones would be like lighting up the scoreboard. And I don't know if you guys listen to the Draft Dudes podcast. I put it out there for the takes on takes, but I put it out there to saying that, you know, if Dre'Mont Jones can produce without Bradley Chubb, without Randy Gregory, without Baron Browning, he could be a top 3 interior defensive lineman in the NFL this season.
I think they were also saying, I forget if it was Pro Football Focus or something else, Dre'Mont Jones, I think in total pressure rate was 5th, and then Bradley Chubb, when he was there, was 8th collectively.
Yep.
So they had like the best duo when it came to, I guess, not necessarily raw interior linemen, but guys that weren't just exclusively edge rushers, because Chubb moves around too, as you know. He was very versatile.
Listen, I know all about this because my team is dominant in the front 7. They've been really, really good. You know, you saw them this year. Quentin Williams has been, if not the best defensive lineman in football this year.
I actually got some context for you with Quinnen Williams in the fold, and Aaron Donald, by the way. Quinnen Williams is first in the NFL in interior defensive lineman in total pressures with 31. Dre'Mont Jones, 32 for Quinnen Williams. Dre'Mont Jones has 31. Quinnen Williams has 7 total sacks for interior defensive linemen. Dre'Mont Jones has 6. They're literally 1 and 2. So there's some merit to my take
Of
here.
course, of course. And to me, we're finally seeing what Quinn Williams is. The Jets didn't use him enough over the last couple of years. They finally figured out, you know what, let's play him on 80% of the snaps, and we'll see what he is. And now you're seeing the gracefulness of this guy. This guy is fast, he's strong, and he's scarily. Everybody tells me, I've never met Quinn Williams, but everything that I've heard, he's a large guy, and he's got a bright smile, and he's the nicest person you'll ever meet. But on the field, the guy is a scary SOB. And he will run through a line, and he will take your mother and your sister on his back to get to the quarterback. It's so very interesting when you look at defensive linemen. Aaron Donald, I don't know what's going on with him this year. Maybe it's the teams that they're playing, and maybe he's just – he doesn't really care anymore. I mean, he is a dominant force. This might be the first year that he's not an all-pro player. And we were talking about him breaking records. I mean, 8 years in a row where he's an all-pro player, and he needs one more to tie the record and two to break the record. That's why he signed that extension. He wants to be known as the best defensive lineman to ever play the game. And I'm just kind of shocked that he's not as good or even better than we thought he was going to be this year, even with, I believe, going into the season, a better defense than they were last year.
Yeah, he only has 4 sacks this year in total.
It's crazy.
And not a lot of quarterback hits this year.
No, it's what like you were saying, as everybody knows, we were talking to Mile High Huddle Broncos and NFL analyst Lance Sanderson. Like you were saying, it's really been a two-man league this year at the defensive line positions, and it's it's really fantastic when you see it, because if you can dominate the middle and you can put pressure on the quarterback down the middle, the outside, it opens up everything. And you can see it this year. The Jets defense, because Carl Lawson came back, even though he is not the quarterback sacker we thought, but he puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It opens up everything for all the other guys up front. The Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson's coming back this week. I heard he's going to be back at full strength, and that's why, by the way, the Broncos got one of our guys, Martin, who I think is a good sack guy. He's a guy that could put pressure. In the 6 weeks that he's played, he has 1.5 sacks. He does average between 4 and 5 sacks this year on a Broncos defense. Maybe he gets 5-6 sacks this year. And he's a good player. Martin came from the Texans. He was a guy before the Jets brought him in. I think he had 5 sacks his final year with the Texans.
Also one of the best special teams linebackers in the league. So.
He's really good. And I think the Jets definitely won. I think they both won. I think it was fair. They needed somebody to fill in with Chubb, a young guy that could get to the quarterback, and the Jets believe that taking not this year's 4th round draft pick, but next year's 4th round draft pick, it can give them that 2 4th round draft picks that if they want to trade up this year to get a player that they want, or even next year if there's a player that they want, move up to the 3rd or 4th, 2nd round and get what they need. And I think it worked out for both teams, but I think your Broncos made a good move. I really do.
I do as well. A couple of really quick stories here. Over my left shoulder here, that is my my montage. I covered the NFL draft for Mile High Huddle 2019. I got to meet Quinn Williams, and he is an absolute charming person. Like when you talk to him in person, he's an amazing person. So just to kind of throw that one in your face a little bit, Errol, sorry about that.
No, sure.
But in terms of Jacob Martin, he is actually a Colorado kid. He grew up in Denver, so he's been around the Denver Broncos a lot. There's a legendary high school football coach. He's actually the play-by-play caller for the Denver Broncos. His name is Dave Logan. He coached against Jacob Martin multiple times. I believe Cherokee Creek High School or something like that here in Denver. Coached against him multiple times in high school, and went to the University of Colorado and said, "Hey, you need to take a look at this kid because he's a high quality football player." The University of Colorado said, "No, they're we've seen him. We don't care. He's too small. He's not going to play very well." He went to Temple right after that, and then was an undrafted free agent, I believe, by the Texans, like you were saying, and now comes full circle. I was listening to Dave Logan the other day on the radio after the Broncos brought him in. He's like, this kid's going to be phenomenal. Like, he's going to be a very good football player for this Broncos defense. I'm very excited he's here. Hopefully, he can actually kind of carve out a niche for this Broncos defense. So I'm intrigued to see some Jacob Martin. I need to go and do a little deep dive on the tape and see what he actually looks like as a player. But I've heard he's a very high quality special teams player, and he can offer something for the Broncos in terms of pass rush, while Randy Gregory and Baron Browning are still coming back from their injuries.
When he was on the field for the Jets, he looked really good. And he could put pressure on the quarterback. I think he's going to be able to be a good guy on the outside that could put pressure. You could put him on the right side. You could put him on the left side. And he could play DE, or he can also play the linebacker position. So I think he could do a lot of different things. So it's exciting. I listen, I'm not hurt that the Jets for the first time, I could say the Jets have an abundance of defensive linemen. So they needed to get rid of one of them. They have Jermaine Johnson coming back from IR. So they had to get rid of Martin. And I think the Jets got something back. They gave up a fifth, and they gave up Martin for a fourth. I think it was a fair trade. And in a long run, it could benefit both teams. Martin could turn out to be a pretty good player for them. And that fourth-round draft pick could turn into a second, or maybe a second and a fourth to move up into the first to get a player of their liking. So I think it benefits both teams. So I think you should be excited about Jacob Martin.